I mean, welcome. You know the deal by now. It's another show.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. Welcome back to Two Geeks, One Mic. I am joined with our good friend Amber. Amber, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for letting me be your stand-in geek today.
I appreciate that. Our thoughts and prayers and noble gestures and vulgar gestures go out to Eamon, who couldn't be here because he has a job that makes him work. Stupid. And yeah, it really sucks. We miss him, but he's in a better place. And by a better place, I mean in bed, asleep. And damn, I'm jealous. I am jealous. I'm jealous.
But you got your coffee
I
because we're
do
gonna
have my
need it.
coffee. It's in my Star Wars mug, my industrial automation mug. It makes me happy. Uh-oh.
Are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
Well, I'm gonna have to do some editing in this one. All right. So as you guys know, we've been talking about the Star Wars series that has everybody in an uproar right now. And yeah, episode 4 happened. And
I feel like I'm ready to like jump in, like just dive in.
you know what? Just go for it. Just go
Okay.
for it. Cause let's do it. Because there's no preamble.
Yeah.
There's no amuse bouche for this. There's nothing. It's just go. Let's just go.
Okay.
Let's just go.
So I watched this episode 3 times, and that's a first for me because all of the other episodes, I felt like I retained pretty much everything. Um, this one, I felt like every time I finished the episode, I was just thinking, well, like, what happened? Like, I felt like I missed something, or like perhaps there was something like hidden in dialogue somewhere that was going to really like I don't know, like kind of bring forward some progression, right? And so we're at the midway point. So this is mid-season climax area. And I will say this. Did I think that the episode was horrible? No, but I was just whelmed, like it was just.
Yes.
And I think perhaps I went in thinking, oh, it's episode 4 of an 8 episode season. So maybe I was expecting more.
Something. Yeah.
But first off, I was really excited to meet our Wookiee. Like, I was so excited to get this guy. And he's dead. So we can take that off the table. I was upset about that. Also, I think at this point in the story, the mystery of like who's the baddie, it's starting to draw out a little bit too long for me. And I say that as someone not familiar with the Star Wars, fandom, a lot of the
Yeah.
source stuff. So I don't typically know exactly what I'm looking for, but I went back and watched 3 times because I was just positive if I watched it, I would pick up on something. And it seems generally like this episode, it was just kind of giving you an extra episode to be like, is it this guy? Is it this woman? Could this be
Yeah.
Sith guy over here? Is this a collaborator over there? But we've been doing that since, the first 2 episodes. So it's a little bit too drawn out, and maybe this felt a bit too not slow paced in terms of the episode, but slow pace in terms of the season.
Feels very unfocused to me.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It almost feels like they're going, you know, they're filming and they're writing as they're filming. Like, oh, it would be a really great idea if we had this happen in episode 4. Oh,
Oh,
but then what's
okay.
going to happen in episode 5? I don't know, but let's go ahead and do this. And then when episode 5 comes, we'll start working that. You know what I mean? Like it,
Yeah, like an olden timey episodic season where
yeah.
they just like it just kind of builds and yeah, yeah.
And it feels for me, it feels very unfocused. It feels like, what are we even doing? Like, do we care about, we obviously don't care about Brendock, right? That was just a story to introduce the Jedi. We don't care about any of the Jedi because we're killing them without giving in now 3 cases we've killed them with giving them barely any screen time. Um so we don't care about the Jedi Masters. So the story is very quickly saying, okay, well, who is the baddie, right? Who's the Sith
Mhm.
that we're going up against, or I guess not Sith.
Right, like collaborator, whatever,
Yeah.
we don't know. So many question
We have
marks.
we have the story between May and Osha. Like, is that going to be the story? Is the Sith going to be the story? Is there going to be some sort of Jedi cover up that's going to be part of the story? It's a little late in the season to be introducing new storylines, but I feel like at this point in time, they're just kind of throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks. And that's why
Yeah.
I say it kind of feels unfocused because there's just not a lot of investment.
Yeah, I feel like okay, this is just a me thing, but I am not a fan of end of the episode cliffhangers like that. I think
Yeah.
I mean, wait, do you remember way back when The Walking Dead, when Negan kills the one guy with the bat? Spoiler alert if you haven't seen
Yeah.
it, it's been
Right.
so long, I'm sorry, but they drew that whole thing out and then like you don't know who dies, right? And I'm
Yeah.
kind of getting the same feeling with the person that they introduce at the end of the episode who just kind of like force bitch smacks everyone, out of the way.
I believe he's being referred to as Darth Teeth because of the big smiley guy on his mask.
Darth Smiley.
Darth Smiley.
Yeah,
Mr. Smiling.
right? I if it were me, like if I were in the writers room, I would have shortened this entire episode to half its length and then ended the episode on the first kind of
Yeah.
like everyone like getting up and like getting ready to fight, maybe a couple like words said. I like when I enjoy cliffhangers when they're done. There we go. There we go. I
Oh,
like cliffhang
sorry.
I enjoy cliffhangers when you get the cliffhanger and then it proposes an answer or a question afterwards. So you get like teased a little bit, but the cliffhanger isn't like who died, who's behind the mask, who's the person. The cliffhanger is like, okay, what does it mean? Like
Yeah.
cliffhanger and then maybe a reveal, but then doing the reveal in a way that it poses another question and keeps
Right.
the plot going forward a little bit. Now, again, I don't think this episode was bad. I just think that mid-season feelings for me, it was just a little bit like meandering.
Yeah. Okay. As a standalone episode, I'll agree with you. As a standalone episode, I don't think it was as bad as episode 3
I think it
as
was
a
much
standalone
worse.
episode. Oh, do you?
Yes.
I love that we go back and forth on this.
Yeah.
But the thing that I absolutely agree with you on is there's no story here. It's we have to land on the planet, and then the whole entire beginning of the episode, the first half of the first 3 quarters of the episode, is them walking through the forest, racing to this Jedi, And it's like you're not accomplishing anything with the story right now. You, it
And
it doesn't give us anything. It doesn't give the audience anything. Why not show up on the planet, give me a 2-minute montage of, we need to hurry to get to Master Chewbacca, whatever his name, I can't remember his name.
yeah.
And then the May and her little dude being like, we have to hurry to kill him before anybody gets there. And guess what? And then you can eliminate the first, 30 minutes of the episode, start off the episode with coming to the Wookiee's hut and finding him dead.
Yeah, like
And
if
then
you're
give me a
yes,
full episode of lightsaber fighting. If you're going to have an episode with very little plot, very little story progression, at least make it
action.
exciting. Give me
Yeah.
a fight.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I feel like this episode mostly just felt like they were trying to add intrigue, like
Like, who's going to get there first? And
well, more like
that
clues.
when you
Like,
got there and then they're dead.
yeah, I felt like it was like they were trying to sprinkle clues in everywhere. So like the Wookiee had on in his hut there was that pattern that the witches
Kelnaka,
had the
Master
witches
Kelnaka.
had. And so I was like, okay, so he has this symbolism in his hut that the witches had as like tattoos or scarification or whatever.
Uh,
And then we had May's tag along buddy. Oh my gosh, I forgot the name already. I made sure to
uh,
look it up before we started because I didn't want to forget it. Um, maybe it'll if you look it up, that would be
I'm pulling it up
helpful.
right now. I just pulled it up for Master Kelnaka. And, if I were a smart man, I would have left it up. Is it Khmer? Yeah.
Chimere, maybe.
Chimere,
Anyways,
Quimere.
it some of his dialogue felt as though it was trying to put suspicion on him.
Yeah.
Soul, I think it honestly, I'm still thinking Soul is if they're gonna like bring a collaborator in, I think he's probably the most fun choice in my opinion.
He's still very much giving involved. And I don't mean
Right.
involved as a Jedi Master going, what the heck is going on? He's very much involved as in he knows something that he's not sharing with the rest of the class.
Yes. And why he doesn't want to kill May? He's like, no, no, no. Like, we need Osha to like for whatever reason, but like
Yeah.
we're gonna get her. We're not gonna kill her, even though this episode focuses a lot on not a lot, but we have dialogue talking about pretty much like using the force to take a life and that being like an internal issue for Osha. And she's like, I can't handle that. But that aside,
Yeah.
the Jedis don't seem to want to kill May. And like, why is that? Like, from everything that we saw in the flashback, she's like evil incarnate. She like tried to burn her sister to death. So, like, what's going on here? And I guess in that aspect, this episode maybe like brought that question forward a little bit more, but it's a question we've already been asking ourselves for 3 episodes.
Another point, I'm glad you brought up May as a character because this is another point that has me seriously questioning the focus of the show. Now, once again, I'm more than happy to review the show as a whole at the end. And, because
Yeah.
there's going to be twists and turns and plot points and stories and stuff that they didn't introduce or that they obfuscated in the beginning because they wanted us to be misled. They wanted us to have the mystery, and I get that. I'm okay with that. But for now, we go from episode 3, young May, who I won't let you go with the Jedi. I'll kill you. And everyone. I'm going to kill you and everyone for whatever reason. We get to this episode, and again, fast forward past all the traveling and attempted intrigue, and all of a sudden, like May spends this entire episode being like, I'm gonna get there and I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna get there and I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna get there and I'm gonna kill him. Wait a minute. Osha's alive. Everything's changed. I don't have to. I'll turn myself into the Jedi. It's just like, what? What? What is happening? What?
That's the thing. And I'm okay with it if that's like part of a bigger twist, like if there's something else coming, that's fine. But at this point, only seeing the episode, it's hard to kind of get excited about it because it's very possible there is no twist. And it's just like the bad guy is revealed, Scooby-Doo pull off the the sheet off the head. But I mean, I paused it and rewatched multiple times when Darth Smiley shows up. That's a man. That's a man. Like those, unless it is a woman with like extremely large and like sausage paw, hand, fingers, everything. That's and two, like the way that the camera like where I paused it at one point, like that was a very manly, strong, muscly arm and a big sausage paw. So like, I don't think it's one of the witches from episode 3. I don't think it's anyone that they were involved with as children on their home planet.
Right.
So at this point, possible total new character, which, okay, that will be interesting as long as we get some more fingers pointed, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. And here's the other thing too. So established canonically, the only way to get a red blade, a red lightsaber, is you have to have
kill
a
a
kyber
Jedi
crystal
and take one from him, right?
Not necessarily.
Oh, no. Okay.
Not necessarily. Although that is the Sith method because that's what they want you to do. They want you to prove that you can kill Jedi. But the important piece of this is that you have to break the crystal's soul, I guess you could say.
Essence.
Yeah, you have to force all of your dark-sided energy, all your pain and your hurt and your whatever, everything that fuels the dark side of the force into that crystal until you make it bleed. And at that
that's
point
the
in
color.
time, and that's where they get the red color. Now they established this with the Vader comics. Anakin had just transformed to Vader. He'd gone through the surgery, and Palpatine was destroying all the Jedi lightsabers and ordered Anakin, then Vader, to turn over his lightsaber and have it be destroyed. And Palpatine says, "This is the weapon of a Jedi. You are no longer a Jedi. You're a Sith. And if you want to be a Sith, you have to do this the right way. You have to find a Jedi, kill him, or kill them, take their lightsaber, and build your own from the pieces of their lightsaber." And now you can see why this poses a challenge for Vader, because all the Jedi are dead. Well, most of all of them. And he has to go, and this is part of the reason why he gets so good at hunting down rogue Jedi, because that's what he did for the first, however long it took him to do that. And that's when he builds his new lightsaber. So this person, all of that offering context into this episode, that person has a red lightsaber. Now, do you have to be a Sith to pour dark side energy into a crystal and make it bleed? I don't think so. I don't think that's exclusively a Sith thing. If you are a force sensitive user and you find a kyber crystal and you pour all of your hate and anger and malice and suffering and sorrow into it until it bleeds, then you will have a red kyber crystal. Okay.
So who was Okay, can I ask you something? Is the story that you just told me about Darth Vader, is that like the first time that, so that was
As
like the first red lightsaber was him?
No, it
Oh,
wasn't the
okay.
first red lightsaber. That was the red lightsabers have existed, for forever. But that was the first time we is created. Prior to that, the fandom sort of had this understanding that the red crystals were synthetically created, and that's why they were red, because they weren't as pure, and they were more powerful, but they were more unstable as well. And so there was a lot of like theory into that, but it had never been established as nothing had ever been established story wise or actually inside the Star Wars canon until that Vader comic. But red lightsabers themselves existed from the beginning. That's always been a thing.
So what is the implication? What does that mean for this episode? Was there anything that like
Well,
makes this odd in your opinion, or
so yes, and we're
okay.
gonna get there in sort of a roundabout way.
Please
Um,
take me on the journey with you.
because we've got some serious questions when it comes to the Star Wars canon. Okay. Now, this wouldn't be a problem. Here, another interesting little side note here. This wouldn't be a problem if when Disney purchased Lucasfilms, they had just said Star Wars is Star Wars. Star Wars is Star Wars. You're fine. All Star Wars is just Star Wars and everything is great. They didn't do that. When they bought Lucasfilm, they said, this is canon. This is the only thing that actually exists in Star Wars. Everything else is fan fiction. Everything else is they started referring to it as the EU, the expanded universe, and the expanded universe was not canon. Does not exist in Star Wars canon. Okay, so step
So
one,
basically they're saying like there's a divide. Like this is one thing, that's another thing.
they set their own rules. They
Okay.
set and established a set of well-defined rules and said these are the rules. You can only play within these rules. Okay, and I understand them doing that. They wanted to clarify things for themselves and clarify things for
Mhm.
the future of the franchise. Cool, great. It's a great foundational move. Um, well, so now keep in mind what I just established, that we have Star Wars canon stating this is how you get a red lightsaber. Okay. So this person, according to canon, unless they're going to introduce some wild new story or wild new method, like they did with the witches, because it's not the force anymore. Now it's the thread, and they've got threads and they're pulling on threads, and it's like this vague, weird thing that just sort of diverges away
I
from what
liked
we've
it.
had. I know,
I know.
but I'm saying it's they're building on, they're trying to build something new on top of already established canon, and it
Like
seems,
like like we don't know, but it could be headed in that direction, right? Like there's no.
and it yeah, and it seems a
Okay.
little bizarre because Disney are the ones that came through and said these are the rules, and they were very strict about it in the beginning. These are the rules. You can't break the rules. These are the rules. No, 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 no. That's EU. That's fan fiction. That doesn't exist. That's not Star Wars. And it was a real controversial move at the time. And now here they are being
Okay.
like, yeah, well, threads. And so we're all kind of like, okay, this is a little bizarre. But so the next piece of this that then becomes bizarre is one of the characters in episode 4. And I already know, like, everybody already knows where I'm going with this because it's
I
such a
don't.
hot topic.
I'm ready.
Jedi Master Ki-Adi-Mundi. Now, Wikipedia is the Star Wars wiki. It is not canon. It is maintained by fans. Okay, cool, great, whatever. But up until just recently, Wikipedia had Ki-Adi-Mundi as being 70 years old during the time of Phantom Menace and was born in like 93 BBY. BBY is the year marker. It means before the Battle of Yavin.
Okay.
And this story, the Acolyte, takes place like 180 BBY, right? It's like way, 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 way before Ki-Adi-Mundi was even born. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Well, they've since taken that down on Wikipedia because obviously that's not the case. He was not 70 during the Phantom Menace, and he was obviously not born in 93, and obviously his species lives a lot longer than anybody else, or than humans do, right? Which is fine. We've got precedent for that. Freaking Yoda lives to be 900 years old, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I
Like,
was gonna say
that's not a
Yoda's.
problem. But the problem comes with Ki-Adi-Mundi sitting on the Jedi High Council in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and Qui-Gon says, "Ah, yes, he was very well trained in the dark arts. I can only assume this was a Sith." And and all the Jedi Masters are like, "What?" And Ki-Adi-Mundi is like, "The Sith haven't been seen for over a millennia. Record scratch." What? So Episode 1, Ki-Adi-Mundi is saying we haven't seen Sith for 1,000 years. Of the Acolyte, Ki-Adi-Mundi is actively dealing with what they believe to be a Sith. So we've got some real problems with the canon in this moment.
Okay.
Again, I understand that we could see some resolution to this in episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8. However, when you walk into a room and you establish a set of rules, and then you start to operate outside those rules, you don't get to be upset when people go, "What the hell are you doing? You told us we had to follow these rules, and now you're just going off half cocked. Like, what are you even doing? Like, this makes no sense according to the rules that you established." And then they're going, "Oh, no, 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 no. It's this new rule that I'm introducing right here. See, and now it makes perfect sense." And now everybody's going, "What? Look, like, how does
Well,
that make any
okay,
sense?"
okay. For what? Okay, this is very fair, but I will also say someone like me who has no background of all of
Sure.
this stuff, I'm like, okay. It goes right over my head. So like
Right.
me not knowing the background obviously doesn't make it a problem for me because there's no established lore to begin with. And I kind of like I sympathize with people who know the facts and are watching this because they want to see something that they really care about represented in a way that shows them that it's being made in a way that it is cared about. So, like,
Right.
that's super frustrating, but it's also like capitalism. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
let's be totally honest, like with every show that's out there, it's to sell subscriptions to a streaming service and to make money. So like it's rough. It's rough for fandoms these days, especially when you see specific fandoms that have more of like a universe, like Marvel universe, Star Wars
Yeah.
universe, because those are the universes where shows just keep churning out and you want to have something to give to people like every so many months.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but it's just an interesting,
Well,
weird world we live in, isn't
it's
it?
obvious, and here's the thing. Like, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, and I
Yeah.
and I and I, I love where you're going with this, because this reminds me of. I'm throwing it way back here. All right, I'm throwing it way
Please
back here. We're going
throw it.
back to the '90s, kids. Some of you weren't even alive yet. There used to be a show called Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman.
Oh, I remember that
It,
show. My grandma watched it.
do you know why that show got canceled?
No.
It didn't have a broad enough audience. So now
Oh,
it had an incredibly loyal, middle-aged woman viewership.
my grandma.
It, my stepmom watched it religiously. Like it was her like routine, right? Laundry time before the show so that she could fold laundry while she was watching the show. She was a homemaker
Hell
and like
yeah.
she set her routine around this shit. And I was like power to you, I
I
sounds
have
great.
to do that if I want to get laundry folded. I have to, I must.
I yeah. Um but so the thing is and clearly I am not I am not well educated. I do not understand, well, not well educated in the ways of show running and establishing, these different stories and stuff like that. But I do know that they look very, very hard at demographics. They do look very, very hard on who is the show appealing to, who do we want to cater this to, right? And that's marketing. That's marketing at 101. You'll say, I have a product, be it a TV show, be it a beverage, be it a book, be it a food, it doesn't matter. But you got to
Mhm.
look for, who do I want to buy this? Because you
That's
don't just
like
say,
Star Wars through and through, man. Like that, like
yeah.
the toys, the action figures, like that. It really goes hand in hand with Star Wars in general, like the merch aspect of it.
And the thing that you kind of get into is, if I have a product with a well-established fan base or customer base, and I decide that I want to move away from that customer base or fan base and start appealing to another customer base or fan base, that's a very difficult thing to do.
Is it though?
Extremely difficult. Companies, I mean, you see a lot of companies that have these sudden shifts where they're like, now we want to appeal to this customer base, and they disenfranchise their current customer base, and they end up losing money. Now some of them are able to tag into the new customer base and it's a momentary dip and they're able to move back up, but changing your clientele, changing your customer base, changing your fan base like this is a very difficult thing to do. You have to be very careful that you don't lose your foundation while you're trying to build a 100th floor.
Can I
And I
ask you who you
Yeah,
think the established fan base is in
for
terms of
Star Wars,
demographics? Yeah.
it's boys. 100%. It is majority speaking. You've got boys from the ages of 8, when they're young enough and they can start seeing lightsabers and boom, 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 all the way up to, my age and
Yeah.
older. It's mostly appeals to a male audience for whatever reason, because and I don't think it's a sexist or a misogynist thing. I don't
No,
think
I
it's
just
I
think
think that
that.
some things appeal to little boys and some things appeal to little girls. And then there are people that go between that, which is why there are women out there who love Star Wars the most, and there are men out there who hate Star Wars. Like, it's just it's people. But
Mhm.
by and large, for Star Wars, their majority fan base, the majority customer base is males.
So I'm just thinking about like the many generations of Star Wars, right? I
Right.
watched the first three movies with my dad, who is baby boomer generation.
Right.
So that happened. And then when the prequels came out, you had a very large and somewhat angry fan base shitting on the prequels. And I'm not familiar enough with like why people thought they were so horrible. But now we've shifted to a new generation, right? Like your dad probably watched the originals. You were probably right there with him. You were there for the prequels, and now you're here for like the whole cinematic universe done by Disney. And like it seems like every new iteration of Star Wars is going to upset someone. But what's funny now is I hear people talking about like, I just wish they made, good shows like they used to, like the prequel movies. And I'm like, it's just really wild
Yeah,
how like interpretations and
sure.
I don't know, like the lore, I'm putting the lore thing aside because that I do think is a fair assessment. But I also think that there are
Right.
some people that just kind of like old man yells at the sky energy, where it's like, this wasn't made for me and
There's,
my
yeah,
generation. I don't like it. And I think that's fair too. I mean,
yeah,
if I'm on the train and there's like some 15-year-old boy listening to music on his phone without headphones like an imbecile, and it's awful music, and I'm just like, why? Like, I'm that old man. I
right,
get it. I get
right.
it. But I think it's interesting because like the let's be real, they've put out some shows that are some real stinkers, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
I think that's fair, but they've also come out with shows where I was like, "Whoa, that was really good."
Oh, I have Sky
Ooh.
Cake entering the field. Thank you.
Ooh.
We're talking Star Wars. Do you want to say hi to Amber?
We're talking
Hi.
about generations in Star Wars. Hi.
Fun.
What do you like about Star Wars?
Lightsabers.
Light. Sabers of light.
Claire's pretty.
Like a moth to the flame.
Thanks for the cake, kiddo.
You're welcome. Love you.
Love you.
I love that. I love
We're
that.
gonna
What
get
a
some Star
perfect
Wars have
timing.
fun.
Yeah, it's
um,
just it's a thing.
yeah, there. So, and as a matter of fact, I love that you bring this up because there's an interview with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Freddie Prinze Jr. plays the voice of Kanan Jarrus in Rebels. And Rebels is a
Mm.
very loved cartoon, at least as far as I know. Um, and Freddie Prinze Jr. was like, "No, I've talked to George about this, and you're not mad that Star Wars is bad. You're mad that Star Wars is not for you anymore." And he said, "You were a kid and you watched the original movies and you loved them, and then the prequels came out, and it was catered to a different generation, a new generation of Star Wars, and you hated it because you were mad that it wasn't for you." And then years later, you're going, "Wow, actually, it was pretty good." When you got outside of your hate,
Mhm.
you went, "Wow, this is actually pretty good." And the prequels are widely loved to this day. They have their problems, but people are like, "Actually, they were pretty good." And the fight, the dueling fates is one of the soundtrack pieces from Star Wars, and or Duel of the Fates. And the battle between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul is one of the most favorite scenes in Star Wars. So there's a lot of things there that kind of go, okay, yeah, okay, we can see this now that we're outside of this. And then you had the last three movies that came out. I'm not a hater of the last three movies. Were they as good? I don't think so. But I still enjoyed them. I still watched them. Um, you know, I
Yeah.
had my problems with them like everybody else, but for the most part, I enjoyed them. They were fun. Um, but it again, it's appealing to a new generation. And so, but this goes back to what I was saying about your client base, your fan base, your customer base. They've had to transcend generations in order to continually keep an established presence on the market. And so, yeah, to say that, and I'll even say this because I can hear people kind of asking this question. When you say that, when I say that the majority of the fan base is male, what does that have anything to do with anything? Like a male like me is not the same as a male like my father, and he likes Star Wars. And a male like me is not the same as, my nephews who also love Star Wars.
Right.
But we love different things about it. So I think, I want to give Disney Star Wars a lot of leniency, a lot of leeway, because again, they are appealing to this new generation of kids who are coming into this. And I can't even blame them for wanting to try and appeal to more than just little boys.
Yeah, I mean,
Disney,
widening the net is really important to sell. And I
and
mean,
why
true.
did Disney buy Marvel and Lucasfilm in the first place? They had done studies,
It
and
wasn't for charity.
it wasn't for charity, and it wasn't for the little girls. Okay, they did this is really fun because I went down a Star Wars hole, and I'm still down there. Um, when they bought Marvel and Lucasfilm, they had done all these studies, and they had found that in the parks, the princess merchandise and the princess dolls and the princess dresses and the tiaras and the things like that were doing very, very well with their female customer base.
Sure.
For from the early 1900s to the 2020s, girls are happy being little princesses. They want to be princesses. They want to be, they've established new boundaries. You've got princesses who fight, you've got princesses who do these, but we're right. What they found though is that none of the little boys wanted to be the prince. As the years changed, Prince Charming swooping in at the very end of the meme. I mean, for crying out loud.
Who wants to be Aladdin when you can have a lightsaber?
Sleeping Beauty, Prince Charming who comes in, no, it wasn't Sleeping Beauty. Which one was it? There's one of them
Rapunzel,
where
Snow
the
White.
prince has no speaking parts whatsoever. He just shows up and is like, and then they get married, and that's it. That's the end of it might be Snow White. I think you're right. The prince doesn't even say anything. And so what they found is, as they progressed through the years, and as things, in the 60s and 70s, as, Marvel Comics and DC Comics became more popular, little boys were like, I don't want to be Prince Charming. I want to be Batman. I want to
Yeah.
be freaking Iron Man. I want to be a Jedi. And, and so what happens is when you've got your princess merchandise flying off the shelves and you've got your prince merchandise collecting dust, what do? You have to do something in order to maintain sustainability. So what did they do? They grabbed the two most popular franchises of the day and said, this is going to carry us into the next millennia. And they were right.
Oh yeah. I mean, look at Star Wars. Wasn't there I remember hearing this story, and I'm sure you know it, so you can probably fill in the details. But when Star Wars was first made, was it Lucas who said, yes, I just want the merch rights? Or was it the studio? I remember there being some story about someone passing on the merchandise rights, and it being the worst call
Oh, I
in
don't no,
history.
I know what you're talking about, and I cannot remember who it was.
Or it might have been George Lucas was like, I don't need this. I just want the rights for merchandise and stuff,
Yeah.
lunchboxes and this type of thing. And it became
That might have
the
been Alec Guinness. Because so
yeah.
Alec Guinness, who played the original Obi-Wan, he was a very celebrated actor, and this was essentially a nouveau college art film. And he's given interviews where he said, I read the script and I thought it was garbage. I didn't like it at all. But he was like, it's you got to do something like this every once in a while to
I
to
found
hand
it.
out, do a favor for a small film. So he said, I'll do it, but don't pay me a salary. Just give me Roy. He made a lot of money.
I found the story. I found
Okay.
it.
Was it Alec
So
Guinness?
It was George Lucas. He
Oh,
famously negotiated for the merchandising rights to Star Wars and made more money from those rights than anyone expected.
nice.
So it's probably too, he probably made more money than like the studio did for, getting butts in the seats in theaters. But it's just, he was on to something, and to this day, like, people are going to try and outdo that, and whether it be selling subscriptions, selling, you know t-shirts at Disney,
Yeah.
everyone's going to try and cash in on that. But also, like, I think one of my most favorite, like, Star Wars memories is when they started putting the Star Wars stuff in Disney at the theme parks. And,
Yes.
like, I remember that first, like, viral video of that little girl, like, going up, and they do, like, the Darth Vader, like, the play fight. And he's like, "Are you like a young Jedi, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "No, no, 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 no." And then she
She
goes and
kneels.
stands next. Yeah, yes, yes. And,
So
like,
good.
as an adult woman, I was younger than I am now, but still an adult. that that little, like, video had me choked up, and I can't tell you what it was, but I was like holding back tears for some reason, because it was the cutest little thing ever. But also, like, it's just kind of cool, like, when little kids are just awesome like that. But it's
Yeah.
like
When they're into it.
talking. Right, right. And, like, talking about, like, new generations and people coming in and, like, finding something about it. Like, I think on one hand, it like, talking about messing with the lore, it sucks. But also, now you've got, like, little girls who are like, "I want to be Darth Vader. I don't want to be the good guy. Screw all that."
Yeah.
Like, I want to be evil, and I want to be powerful and taken seriously.
And and again, like I said, I do struggle with this a little bit, because part of me goes, I want to love all of Star Wars. I do. I want to see a Star Wars show
Sure.
come out, and I want to watch it, and I want to be excited,
That's
and I
so
want to love
valid.
it, and I
Yeah.
want I want to be I want to go, "Oh, that's so cool." I want those things. I am not Disney's target audience, and I never will be. I maybe I was for about my teenage years. I was one of the few who we watched the prequels, and I was like, I liked them. Like, I don't know what anybody had a problem with. And then people would point out, oh, well, there was this and there was this and there was this. And I was kind of like where you are right now, where I was kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess that's valid, but like I still enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. They did a really great job, because, and I've talked about this before. I hate when you have shows that establish a certain level of capability or technology.
Hmm.
And then later on, when our ability to produce something more sophisticated comes up, they readdress this old TV show. And then it's like, yes, this takes place 100 years before this old TV show. And it's like, well, then why is the technology better?
Yeah.
Why is all the technology better? Like, did we just revert somewhere? Like, what happened? But in the prequels, they did a really great job with that, where, oh yeah, the Jedi are well established. The Jedi combat skills are at their peak, which means the Sith combat skills are at their peak. They
Well, how
had
many
real
years did they have to make the prequels, though? Like, that's something totally different, because these are
exactly,
churned out quick, and those was like that was decades. Decades.
exactly, and it's just real difficult. So again I will stress, again I will reiterate, I refuse to build a platform on negativity. So the Acolyte, it's not for me. I'm not enjoying it. It's not clicking or jiving with me.
Hmm.
And it's not because I'm threatened by female characters, and it's not because blah blah. It's because the story is mid. The story is mid. I'm not getting anything from the story. Now, again, we've got at least 4 more episodes to go. Maybe there's this huge twist, that's going to tie everything up in a nice, neat bow. And I'm excited for that. I do think the Acolyte has done an amazing job when it comes to their combat choreography. Absolutely
Yeah,
amazing.
that looked good.
The rest of the story seems to be just kind of meh. Like I don't care about anyone because you're killing everybody that you're introducing me to. The only people that you're introduced me to that I care about right now is May, Osha, and Master Soul. Like I don't even care about Yord or whoever Master Soul's Padawan is. Like those are side
Honestly,
characters.
I hope Basil, the capybara, is the Sith at this point. Like,
Darth Capybara.
yeah,
But
it's
if you're watching The Acolyte and this is your introduction to Star Wars and you're loving it and you're having a great time with it, happy for you. And I look forward to talking and geeking out about Star Wars with you. I don't care what generation of Star Wars you are. To me, we are Groot. We are all members of this crazy fandom of Star Wars. And I just don't see a need to poo-poo on other people for enjoying a thing that I'm not necessarily into. And Amber, I'm sure you've had this experience as well with particularly with the Wheel of Time. How many times have you gotten into a conversation with someone about a plot point or a character and you've said, oh God, I just hate that person or I hate this storyline because blah, blah, blah. And they've been able to be like, well, actually, I like it because yada, yada, and then point out a new perspective. And you're like, that's a good point. And all of a sudden you really enjoy it. Right?
yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. There, I mean, that's the joy of, not everyone only liking the same thing. I mean, I know when you say like I'm talking about yourself and you said I'm not their target demographic for this show. I might not be either. And
Right.
another thing is too is like what was the most recent one with what's the actress's name? Rosario
Oh, Ahsoka.
Dawson. Ahsoka. I tried watching 2 episodes of that and I just couldn't get into it. I tried,
And
but
see, I loved Ahsoka. I loved Ahsoka.
yeah,
That was so
and
good.
then I think Andor was on my top 5 shows of that year. I thought it was incredible.
That's a
The
great one too.
themes the themes were much more mature, I felt like, and it was just I thought it was an incredible show. So like even talking about, like age and gender, different things are going to stand out to different people, but even if this show like becomes kind of a flop, like they're going to come out with something soon that
Yep.
might speak to me that I really love. And
Yeah.
like there's so much. They do so
Right.
much.
Right. I want to say this right now. Once again, Two Geeks, One Mic is a platform built on positivity, built on just geeks loving things. Okay. And if you don't love it, cool. If you don't love it and you feel the need to make sure someone else doesn't love it also, not cool. I don't care. We can have conversations. I can tell you that I didn't like it, and I can tell you why I didn't like it. And I can even get excited and I can get loud and I can be flapping my hands up and down. But I promise you, I will never, ever willingly or knowingly try and convince someone else that they don't love a thing.
Right. Right.
I want the conversation. And I will say after watching episode 4 of The Acolyte, I went out looking for people talking about it, both good and bad. It was a lot easier to find the bad than it was the good.
You know where to look. I don't. Ignorance is bliss.
That's right. That's right. But no, I want to stress that Two Geeks One Mic is a safe place for you to geek out. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And one of these days, I'm going to learn how to use Discord, and we're going to set up a Two Geeks One Mic Discord so we can do all the geekiness in there together because it's going to be great. And I am so on Discord burnout right now, but I don't care. I need to do this. Um, comment below if you think I should start a Two Geeks One Mic Discord. Comment below if you would join a Two Geeks One Mic Discord.
Hey, I
Maybe
would.
that's what'll motivate me.
I'll be your first. I'll be your
Oh,
first
okay, well now I
member.
have to do it. All right, fine. um so all in all, so episode 3 was a thumbs down for me and a thumbs up for you, right?
hmm
And episode 4 I think is kind of like a sideways thumb for me and a big thumbs down for you. Is that correct?
Correct. I liked episode 3 the most, 1 and 2 middle, this one the least. And I don't think it was terrible. It was just like meh.
There was very little
Yeah.
story there. Very little progression of the story. And oh god, my mind keeps going because once again, like I said before, like if you're gonna have an episode with very little story progression, give me a fight. Give me something excited
Yeah, and
instead
they
of people
pulled the
wandering through the
plug.
jungle.
They pulled
Yeah.
the plug right before the fight.
And you have in the fight, you have like 8 dudes versus 1. I don't care how good you are, you can't fight 8 dudes. You can't.
Well, that's why they brought all those red shirts with them. Some of those people gotta die. It's coming.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But based on the direction that they're going, I'd be willing to bet that the dude's just going to run away and disappear into the jungle and they're going to lose him. And May is going to be like, oh, I have to complete my mission. And there's going to be some kind of like twist where Darth Smiley is actually Kimir, whatever the dude's name is. And he did it to remind their unseen master has no limitations on what he can see. He will track her down. And then we're going to find out that she doesn't really have to kill the Jedi Master. She has to kill Osha. And that's going to be because that's what they seem to be telegraphing for me is they seem to be telegraphing a big conflict between May and Osha. And I don't know how they're going to play that out. But in
I'm
the next couple of
hoping
episodes, Osha is going to reestablish her connection with the Force. She's going to get a lightsaber, and so is May. And my guess is they're going to be some kind of large final battle. Because I mean, the most recent Star Wars, they like to have these like big confrontations, like as climaxes for the end of their shows. They did it with Obi-Wan, and that one made sense. Obi-Wan versus Vader, that was great.
so
They did
you're
it
seeing the
in.
pattern recognition here.
That's my prediction.
Okay. I know what could happen that would really sell it to me.
Okay.
And that would be things getting really weird. Like let's do like some weird cloning stuff. Like let's go kind of like out there with more of like a darker kind of undercurrent where it starts to get a little bit more creepy. Now, honestly, I don't think it's going to go that way. This show seems very made for like a younger audience. I don't think that they would go full on
I agree.
like Twilight Zone for it. But I think if we're looking at like a massive like 1v1 battle at the end, I hope that it's not the twins against each other, because I think with the theme that we've been presented so far, especially with, the witches, power of one, power of many, it seems like these girls have to reunite, get over their differences because they are stronger as two than one, and then they will take on whomever our evil Sith person is, possibly. That's my estimation. I don't know. I could be way off base.
I can see that. I can see that, and it kind of goes for like what Eamon and I were talking about. We were excited to see the Force link. That maybe there's a Force link between these two twins. That would be cool.
That would make sense why they're keeping her alive. Like
Exactly. And so I'm there's even a possibility that, just leaning into the theory that Saul, he's trying to pit them against each other. And what are they going to do? They're going to look up and say, no, we're
Overcome.
not going to fight each other. We're going to fight you. And they're going to team up
Yes.
against him somehow. I don't know. All this to say that the show could really go any direction.
Hmm.
But I like your hope that it kind of goes. I mean, because they've already established themselves as way out there. And I feel like if you're going to go way out there, you should
Take
lean
it
into it.
further.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really just lean into it. Really go for it. And one of the mistakes I've expressed that Star Wars has made in the past is that they have succumbed to fan pressure. Like, I mean, let's take this just for a second. Currently, The Acolyte has the lowest audience rating of any Star Wars product, to include the god awful holiday special.
But it also has a lot, right? Like it has a lot of engagement because of that.
Right. So imagine this. Imagine we get episode 5, episode 6, and then there is a Luke, I am your father level revelation
Hmm.
that ties everything up in a nice, neat bow. I'm hopeful that they can do that. I don't expect that they will, but I'm hopeful that they will. And I am perfectly happy remaining cautiously optimistic until the end of the series, in which we can talk about the finale, about what was a hit, what was a miss, all that kind of good stuff.
I will say, I forget the name, but I think the woman who's creating this show also did Russian Doll, which is a Natasha Lyonne sci-fi series.
Oh,
And
fun.
Russian Doll is very good, very good. But Natasha Lyonne is very good at everything she does. So I guess
Nice.
there's like a little bit of hope on my behalf that they do, like, she goes a little bit out there with it because she's been known to do that in the past. So, like, fingers crossed, maybe we'll see. I'm just giving you my thoughts and my
I love your
feelings.
thoughts. I love your thoughts, Amber. That's why I continually have you back on the show. You're the best. I thank you so much for being here. Before we wrap this up, remind everybody who you are, where you can be found, and why people should follow you, because they absolutely should.
Yeah, Road to Tarvalon, and I'm currently covering House of the Dragon, House of Le Dragon. And I've got an episode coming out soon, hopefully, where I sat down with the Wheel of Time production designer and costume designer. And as soon as Amazon tells me that I'm allowed to post this video, it will be posted. So we'll see. We'll see about that.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, so thank you for being here, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, joining and watching with us. Please, 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 feel free to leave a comment below about what you liked about the show, what you didn't like about the show. I am free with my criticism, but I am free with my
Ooh,
praise as well.
I have a
Um,
prompt too for people
ooh,
watching. I want to know, because I don't know like a lot about the fandom and about Star Wars, but I want to know people's favorite and least favorite of the Disney
okay.
shows.
Specifically Disney era
Yes,
Star
just
Wars.
Disney.
Favorite and least favorite. Ooh, I like it. That's good. Because that's a good point. Because Disney Star Wars has had some S tier storytelling, and I mean the Bad Batch is amazing. I love the Bad Batch. Yeah, no, that's a good one. Yeah, leave that in a comment below. Remember, also comment if you want a Two Geeks Discord, so we can do some things like that. Salt Lake City FanX is coming up. I am thinking about possibly going to FanX, maybe a little bit and maybe handing out some of these beautiful Two Geeks One Mic wristbands. Leave a comment if you go into FanX and you'd like one of those. Let's figure that out. But once again, Amber, thank you for being here. Thank you so much
Thank
for participating.
you.
As I've said numerous times, I love your perspectives on things. I love your your thoughts. I love your brain. You've got a nice wrinkly brain. And I always appreciate our conversations. I always find them very, very engaging. And I find that I learn things as well. And I also like that because
It's
if you're gonna
always
be
a pleasure. Same. You're teaching me so much.
if you're going to be geeky about some shit, you should learn about some shit as well. And so,
Yeah.
from all of us here at Two Geeks, One Mic, we thank you so much for being here. Thanks for geeking out with us. And wherever you are out there, I hope you leave here just a little bit more geeky than you were when you first got here. And stay geeky, my friends.
Yeah.